Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, your soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach, psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now. A new year doesn't change your life. A new you does. Welcome, and Happy New Year. Here we are, standing at the doorway of 2026 together. The world is calling this January, but your soul is calling it something deeper. A threshold, a hinge, a crossing into a new assignment, and maybe sometimes assignments for the soul that can be at the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual levels in which it needs to learn and garner certain experiences and experience the joy and the happiness on these different levels of being. So it becomes exciting in many ways. But before we rush into plans or goals or timelines, I want to offer a different beginning, a spiritual beginning, because your soul is whispering a question that matters more than any resolution. How will you enter this year? Not how everyone else enters it, not how your habits want to drag you back, but you, the inner you, the soul you. And that's why today feels sacred. This right now is the first episode of the new year. Our first moment to breathe in 2026 with intention. Hi, I'm back with another episode and keys to soul progress, which is refocus. Refocus. And I'm so grateful that you're here with me for this year's opening message. We're going to be looking at the spiritual significance of a new beginning. We're going to talk about Jesus and what he has to say about transitions. And we're going to get into some pearls of wisdom of higher teachings that could be of help to you as you're moving forward in this new year, this journey, this adventure in your life. And there's certain things that people do search for in the beginning part of the year. What are those things? And how do they relate to the soul? And what are the stories that can ground you? This is some of the things we're going to be talking about in this first episode of how to approach 2026 in a way your soul will thank you for. This is your spiritual refocus. It's like a reset. This spiritual reset, which I'm calling refocus. Let's cross the threshold together. A new year is not just a date on a calendar. It's a spiritual container, a space where your soul contracts expand, your inner flame brightens, divine timing becomes more accessible, your emotional body resets itself, and heaven draws a little bit closer. Every tradition, contemplative, mystical, ancient Christian, monastic, teaches that beginnings carry power. Not because of superstition, but because your consciousness is open. The mind is more receptive, the heart is more available, the spirit is more willing. This is the moment creation begins again. And we have a wonderful opportunity to reflection and being more intentional to utilize these beginning stages of the new year to help us, to lift us up, to keep us focused and keep us moving forward. Imagine a lighthouse perched on a rugged coastline. Every year, on the very first morning, the keeper climbs the narrow, winding steps before dawn. He pauses before lighting the great beacon and whispers, "Let me shine clearly this year." Once told an apprentice, "If my first light is cloudy, every ship that depends on me suffers. If my attention is scattered, guidance becomes dim." Then he said something that feels meant for us. "The first light I shine every year decides the strength of all the lights that follow." You are the lighthouse keeper of your own soul. And the first inner light you shine in 2026 matters. Every year has a spiritual assignment, whether we are aware of it or not. But by being more intentional, being more reflective, asking for guidance of your higher self, asking your soul to give you the intuition, it allows you to begin to understand what the spiritual assignment may be, or maybe more than one. For example, some years is about healing. Some years is about pruning. Some years is about stretching you. Some years call you higher. Others break you open. Others prepare you. And some years launch you. 2026 will reveal itself to you. But first, you must enter it consciously. You must shine your first light clearly. I want to talk about how you can be able to do that. I was thinking about Jesus as the mediator and how that relates to new beginnings. Well, think about Scripture, which calls Jesus many names, but in times of new beginnings, one name rises to the forefront: Mediator. A mediator stands between the old and the new, between what was and what will be, between your past identity and your emerging self. He does not wait for you inside the new year. He walks you into it. And here's a story that may bring this a little bit home to you. A traveler, let's call the traveler Chris, arrived at a river at midnight. Cold water, no bridge, no lantern, no map, just darkness. Frozen, he whispered, "I can't cross alone." Then a figure stepped forward, calm, steady, sure. "I'll walk your cross," he said. But Chris looked at him and said, "But I can't see the bottom." "You don't have to. You only have to see me." And together they crossed, stepping onto stones the traveler never could have known or found by sight. The river was deep and the night was dark, but the presence beside him lit the way, lit his path. And we talk about soul evolution, that we're all on a spiritual path that leads us forward. And we don't always know. Like Chris, it's kind of dark and looking pretty grim. But the presence beside Chris lit the way, lit the path. And that's Jesus at the threshold of 2026. So ask yourself, what can only be crossed with him? What burden is too heavy to carry alone? What fear needs a hand to lead you through? This is where the year truly begins. We move to the next level. There are certain secret yearnings that people have when they begin the new year. So every January, people say they want better habits, clear goals, healthier routines, a higher paying job, family members to get along. But beneath that, underneath the personality, the soul is craving something more profound. Let me talk about 7 things the soul may be craving more of. Think about what applies to you and what you want to do about it. So, number 1, a clean emotional slate, not dragging the past into the new year. 2, a real connection with God. Not necessarily religious performance, but wanting a relational presence, a relational dialogue, a sense of this higher connection to God, Atman, the Creator, your I am presence. Whatever you want to call God, people are looking for that. Number 3 is peace, a quieting of mental noise, the mental chatter that goes on in one's mind, just wanting peace. Number 4 is clarity. And what I mean by clarity is a sense of direction, even if just for the next step. People want to know, how do I gain clarity through this particular situation or moving into the new year? How do I get clarity what I need to make decisions around? And the 5th is identity renewal. To finally stop being who the old year trained them to be and who you want to be moving forward with each day, with the presence of that God self, that I am presence, with the awakening of your soul, guiding you and taking the steps you need to take. We don't have to see the whole year and what we want to do. As I talked about Chris and crossing the river. If we invoke God's presence in our life and we're consistent around that, then God can help us and guide us. And even if you have very little or small levels of belief, we need to say sometimes, God, I believe, help thou my unbelief. And God will hold on to that component that you are believing in around and helping you to reduce those components that you have a lack of belief or understanding around. Now, the 6th is what I alluded to, was consistency. Consistency is not intensity. Sometimes we go into the new year and say we've got to have a thrust for a purpose and we need to keep our engines moving and then pucker out. What we need is consistency. And people know this is what they're searching for consistency. And the 7th is spiritual companionship. To feel guided, supported, and held. Looking for, be it internally to the companionship of the awareness of your soul and all that soul has to offer you and have a greater sense of completeness, or a spiritual companionship with people or fellowship with other individuals of like mind. They're looking for those things. And this episode is crafted for those deeper needs that I just outlined, those 7 needs. And the ones people rarely speak out loud about that need to be looked at, and I call these pearls of wisdom for the first week of the new year as we're moving into it. These pearls come from sacred teachings of higher wisdom, braided with biblical truth without being a sense that I have to know it's coming from this teaching or that teaching, and whether it's right or whether it's wrong. That's the intellect. It's trying to decipher that. But just think about these pearls that I'm going to talk about. The pearl that I want to talk about is around your consciousness, which opens the year or closes it. Because you cannot enter 2026 with last year's mindset and expect new outcomes. To shift the year, you must shift the consciousness you bring into it. Ask yourself, what energy am I opening this year with? Think about that. What energy am I opening this year with? And that's usually furthest from our mind to think about energetically. And here's some things, and this is some of the pearls that you're trying to really gather to see and change and transform some of these energies. You're trying to buoy up. Is it fear? Is it hopeless or being hope you're entering the new year with? Confusion? Peace? Faith? Expectations? Alignment? Fill in whatever, but you're trying to answer this question for yourself. What energy am I opening this year with? But it can be also anxiety, or it could be love, or it could be with anger. You're opening the year out because something just happened recently in the old year that brings out anger, irritability, frustration, or annoyance. Be aware of those things because the year begins inside you. Here's another story. Meditation teacher once said, your first breath of the day sets the tone for everything that follows. And one morning after a difficult year, Rebecca woke up differently. Instead of leaping out of the bed in stress, she inhaled deeply and said, today I breathe with intention. That one breath shifted her day. Be intentional about how you start your day, the new year, by breathing in that first breath with intention. Because the first breath of the day sets the tone for everything that follows. Remember, it's a key there. Another pearl I want to talk about is the soul grows through surrender, not striving. Striving creates burnout. Surrender creates alignment. Be willing to ask yourself, where am I forcing? Where am I gripping on to something? And where am I resisting? God doesn't ask for force. He actually asks for flow. And it is in the flowing state that we are in attunement with God's grace. Here's another pearl. Every new year brings new assignments. We may be aware of it. We may not be aware of it. We may be walking through the year a little unconscious. Or I would like you to walk through the year being intentional, being purposeful, being present, being plugged in to something greater than yourself, being plugged in to your soul, being plugged in to the Creator, to Jesus, being plugged in to your highest source to help guide and direct you. Not every year is a breakthrough year, though. So every year gives us certain assignments, certainly, but sometimes, we're, as I said, are aware, we're not aware. So some are root years. Think of this. Some are learning years. And when I go back for a minute, when I mean by root, I mean rooting you into something, into a value, or into a spiritual belief, rooting you and asking you to hold that root, let it grow, and let it flourish. So getting back. So some are learning years. There's certain things we need to learn. The soul is always on a quest of learning, of growing, of advancing. You've heard me say this again and again, and I will continue to say this throughout the year and years to come. Some are healing years. There's certain things we have to heal in ourselves, physically, mentally, emotionally. And we don't want to run for those things. We want to see what it is so we can be more conscious about it. And some are courage years. Courage years. And I talked about on the podcast, coming of the age of the heart, being courageous to uphold and stand for spiritual principles in your faith, and being attuned with what would Jesus do in this situation? What would your higher self, your soul, do in this situation? Sometimes what we have to do, besides those types of questions, is ask God, what is 2026 designed to be for me? I'm going to talk about 3 doors of January. That may help you think about that question that you're asking God, and also to have God to give you, your Creator, to give you that awareness of what is 2026 designed to be for me. So a woman dreamed she stood in a hallway with 3 doors. Door number 1 was past. Door number 2 was people. And door number 3 was presence. Pulled her backwards. People pulled her sideways, but presence pulled her forward. And a voice whispered, start the year through the door of presence. And that whisper is your soul, the substance of your life. Start the year through the door of presence. This is your 2026 invitation. We can get so caught up in past, what we didn't do right, or what we could have done better. And we can get caught up in people, what they said to you and how they made you feel, and how there was a sense of injustice, or there was a sense that it could have been a better relationship, or we could have done things differently, on and on and on and on. What if you'd go through door number 3? Presence, which can pull you forward. This is your 2026 invitation. And you might be thinking, well, how to enter 26 spiritually ready with presence? I have some thoughts about it. You may have some thoughts about it too. I'd love to hear yours and what you're trying to do in your 26 and starting it off on the footing that you wish to start it off on. Here are some steps I thought would be helpful to be aware of. Step 1, clean your inner altar. Release last year's heaviness. Make room for divine direction. Sometimes that can be through meditation, through prayer, through affirmations, through decrees, through listening to uplifting music that helps you to clear the deck. Clear your inner altar that may be feeling very tense or constricted in some ways. But what you're trying to do is make room for that higher direction to flow into you, flow up and around you. Step 2, ask Jesus to guide your first steps. Ask Him, walk me into this year. Show me the next stone beneath my feet. Because when we walk by faith and we're asking Jesus, literally, vocally saying, Jesus, I want you to guide my steps in 2026. And I will be prayerful. I will be working on my attunement, be in listening grace, to listen to you through my soul that may be trying to guide you through intuition. I'm willing to work through that and figure out my connection by what is Jesus' voice talking to me versus what are other people's voices that are talking to me. And they may be saying the same thing, but they may be saying something different. How do I distinguish the voices? As a part of this, asking for guidance from Jesus. Step 3 is choose one spiritual practice for January. Just one. And consistency is better than intensity, which I mentioned before. Choose one spiritual practice. Think about what that spiritual practice is. Write it down, put it on a sticky, and put it on your mirror. Put it on your door so you can see when you're going out that this is what I said I wanted my spiritual practice to be and to practice. It could be something mental. It could be something emotional. It could be something physically that you're doing in graciousness. But whatever it is, be mindful and try to be consistent around it. Step 4 is set a spiritual intention, not a resolution. Spiritual intentions like I choose clarity, I choose peace, I choose devotion. Let intention lead the year. When we try to lead with resolution, it's an intellectual quality that gets lost over time. Many people have made different types of resolutions, and by February or March, it's starting to fade or has already gone out the door. Intention is the quality of the soul and heart. And those intentions are something you want to be able to do, and you're working on just being more mindful, more aware. For example, an intention can be, I want to be kinder this year. So in my thoughts, in my words, in my deeds, how can I be kinder? Not rushed, not abrasive. But kindness also doesn't mean that you're milquetoast. You're not. If there's something that person has done and you need to be firm, then there's a firm kindness that you need to have. You need to set boundaries. You need to let the person know that what they intentionally or unintentionally did was not accurate, not correct, not for you. And so we do need to speak up when we need to speak up. But how we speak up is important. It's important to the soul. And the soul will always guide you. And united, the soul united with that mediator, the Christ, the Jesus, will give you the prompting. You don't want to say this. You want to say this instead. Will guide you on how to speak, even in the times in which people are crossing boundaries. So remember, let intention lead the way. Step 5, and this is the last step, is begin the year slow. Slow is spiritual. Presence is powerful. Stillness is wisdom. Let 2026 begin with calm authority, not rush. Because when we start to rush through life, we can get off our pace. We can get off center, off balance. It's like my book, Mastering Life's Adventures, that I wrote, I guess 2 decades ago. It was Mastering Life's Adventures on the beam. And it was a balance beam. A beam of light, or literally a balance beam. And you want to begin slowly like you're on that balance beam. If you don't walk slowly, you're going to fall off. Try to mount back on to the balance beam and then do the same thing and fall off. It's only in centeredness and slowness and being aware of the presence that is within you, that is guiding you, being aware of your soul. And that means it requires some degree of stillness, being aware, being attuned. So as I said, let 2026 begin with calm authority, not rushing. The tortoise and the hare. The hare is rushing and playing around, but it was the tortoise that slowly, step by step, intentionally, that won the race. So this is the first episode of the year, and we've begun it with intention. A refocus around intention. With wisdom and with the presence of God leading us, we are not walking into 2026 alone. We are walking in with guidance, with clarity, with spiritual partnership, and with new light. The light of your soul, the substance of your life, being attuned, being aware, and being open to the graces and gifts and the opportunities that will flow your way in 2026. Always with a lens on of how to be my best self in all interactions that I have. And those interactions are not just with other people. They're also the interactions you have in your mind with yourself. Something to think about. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.